Henry, a 92-year-old man, dragged himself through the entrance of the cafe, his frail figure barely withstanding the weight of time and sadness. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The cafe was known for its artisanal sandwiches and strong coffee, attracting customers from all walks of life. As Henry entered, the eyes of customers and staff turned to him. He was thin and disheveled, his white hair unkempt, his clothes tattered and carrying the pungent smell of countless nights spent in the cold. The fabric of his worn, faded, and threadbare clothes hung loosely from his body. His pants were patched in several places, evidence of many attempts to keep them together. His shoes, once sturdy, were now worn, barely holding together. His face, weathered by the sun, bore the lines of a hard life, but his eyes still contained a fierce determination and desperation. His name was Henry. He approached the counter with trembling hands, trying to blend into the background despite the curious glances and muffled whispers of customers. The air was heavy with tension, but Henry remained focused on his goal. He opened his fingers, revealing a small handful of coins, and his lips moved silently as he counted them, each coin representing a decision of vital importance. Marissa, always standing behind the counter with her recognizable stained apron, watched Henry closely. She was a stern woman, her smiles reserved only for customers who, in her opinion, had obvious purchasing power. Henry finally looked up, his eyes reflecting a faint glimmer of hope, and asked in a hoarse, tired voice for the cheapest sandwich. Marissa watched him carefully as he counted the coins again, adjusting them one by one on the counter, forming a small and slowly growing pile. Realizing he didn't have enough money to buy anything, his wrinkled face showed a touch of despair. His voice trembled as he asked, "Please, do you have any leftovers you can give me? I'm very hungry." Henry's voice was barely audible as he looked at Marissa. "We don't keep leftovers here. This is a cafe, not a shelter. We have nothing for you," Marissa replied coldly, barely hiding her irritation. "Please, just a little bit of food," Henry begged, his eyes wide and distressed, his voice growing weaker. Marissa's irritation grew as the unpleasant smell Henry brought with him filled the air, and the murmurs of disapproval from customers made her impatience evident. "For God's sake, we came here to eat in peace, not to hear a smelly old man begging for food." "Get out," barked one of the irritated customers. "Yes, it's inconvenient. Why don't they ask somewhere else?" Another customer responded with disdain. Henry felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but he couldn't leave, hoping someone would help him. The conversation heated up, and at that moment, Evelyn, a woman in her 40s dressed in an elegant tailored suit, entered the cafe. Her style and demeanor radiated success and wealth, characteristics that did not go unnoticed by Marissa, who quickly tried to soften her aggressive tone to avoid drawing attention from the new customer. Evelyn was a well-known businesswoman in the city and owner of a series of luxury boutiques. Her presence at the cafe was a rare event. As Marissa continued her conversation with Henry, now full of irony, Evelyn sat at one of the tables, ordering her food from one of the staff. Soon she noticed the unpleasant interaction between Marissa and Henry, with some customers watching. "Sir, I've already told you, we have nothing for free here. I ask you to leave," Marissa said with a look of disgust, taking a deep breath, wanting to get out of the situation. "This is a cafe, not a charity center. If you can't pay, there's nothing I can do for you." "I just wanted to eat something," Henry said, lowering his head, ready to give up. Evelyn, after ordering her food, interrupted the conversation, showing her indignation at how Henry was being treated. "I'll pay for this man's lunch," Evelyn said firmly, addressing Marissa, and then asked, "Who owns this establishment?" "Yes, ma'am. My name is Marissa, and I can assure you that I'm sorry for what's happening here. It's not common for us to care about people like this," Marissa began. But Evelyn had already intervened. "We don't care about people like this," Evelyn continued seriously. "Look, Marissa, I need to tell you something important," she said in a tone that everyone could hear, including the needy man before her. "In our daily lives, we meet many people, and each of them has their struggles and challenges. The way we choose to treat each of them says a lot about who we are." "Where did you get that watch? What is that you're wearing?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the watch with an expression of disbelief. Marissa also questioned Henry. "I'd like to know, too. The watch looks expensive. It doesn't seem right for someone like you." Answer the lady before she calls the police, Marissa said with a suspicious look. The discussion captured the curiosity of everyone in the cafe. However, Evelyn was oblivious to the commotion around her. Her gaze remained fixed on the watch, and as Henry began to answer, memories of the watch's origin flooded her mind. These memories brought back a painful past when she had to start over in the early days of adulthood after losing two people she loved at the same time. Chapter 2. The Past Returns. Evelyn grew up in an orphanage, never knowing her biological parents. Although she was never adopted, the love she received at the orphanage made up for this absence. When she was a teenager, old enough to better understand life, she discovered that her father had died of an overdose when she was still a baby, and her mother had left her at the orphanage door. Despite these challenges, Evelyn became a healthy and happy young woman who received love and care from the orphanage staff who became her family. Martina, an orphanage employee, was over 50 years old and had worked there for many years. She had witnessed many things, and when she met Evelyn, she felt empathy and pity for her, as she was just another abandoned girl. Martina, who had a generous heart, became attached to the girl, and they developed a deep bond over time. Although the orphanage had a tragic origin, it became Evelyn's home. The environment, although simple, was always vibrant with the incessant care of the staff who became a family to her. Martina, with her glasses always perched on the tip of her nose and a smile rarely leaving her face, became a maternal figure, as Evelyn soon realized the girl's astuteness and dedicated herself to encouraging every step of her growth. They celebrated her small victories and consoled her during her defeats, patiently teaching her life lessons that went beyond the school curriculum, such as resilience, kindness, and the importance of pursuing dreams. When Evelyn was 17, she was helping Martina at the orphanage, taking care of younger children and organizing tasks such as food preparation and receiving donations. The orphanage often received visits from amateur artists who volunteered to bring donations and joy on weekends. It was common for visitors to bring donations and perform plays. A theater group visited monthly, presenting stories that highlighted the importance of teamwork and valuing people. Evelyn always knew about the visits in advance because the group scheduled the date to meet the orphanage's needs, making those days highly anticipated by the children. During one of these presentations, a 20-year-old young man named Daniel came with the theater group to deliver donations to the orphanage. While watching his friend's presentation, he was captivated by Evelyn, who promptly took the donations and began organizing them in a small, reserved room. When Evelyn and Daniel's eyes met for the first time, there was an immediate connection, one of those rare moments of mutual recognition that seem orchestrated by fate. Daniel was impressed by Evelyn's charisma and maturity, while she was attracted to his kindness and genuine interest in the well-being of the orphanage children. After that day, Daniel made a point of visiting the orphanage more frequently, under the pretext of bringing more donations, although it was clear that he intended to see Evelyn again. The two began to talk regularly, sharing dreams, laughter, and eventually, confidences. Their friendship quickly blossomed into passion and later into love, a deep feeling full of promises of a future together. On another day, when Daniel showed up with more donations, Evelyn's heart raced. "I love being here with you," Daniel said with a wide smile, looking into her eyes. "I know we can't have a relationship here, but I want you to know that I'll wait for you until you leave." Evelyn felt butterflies in her stomach thinking about how wonderful it would be to leave the orphanage with a man like him by her side. "Where will you go when you leave?" Daniel asked anxiously. "I'll stay at the house of a woman named Guadalupe. She's Martina's friend. Guadalupe is a seamstress and knows the owner of a boutique that needs a saleswoman, so I'll have a place to stay and even a job." Evelyn smiled, very happy with the opportunity. "That's wonderful. Give me the address, phone number, and all the contacts you can give me," Daniel said, smiling. "I can come on the day you leave to pick you up and take you to Guadalupe's house," he offered anxiously. "You can, my dear," Evelyn replied, laughing. "I'll need a guide, and so far you and Martina are the only ones I trust to guide me in life outside the orphanage," she confessed, smiling. Evelyn told Martina about her feelings for Daniel. Martina warned her to be careful but blessed the relationship, seeing how Daniel treated Evelyn with love and respect during his visits, always supervised by Martina. Evelyn's 18th birthday arrived, and Daniel was anxious, certain that that day would mark the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. He arrived at the orphanage with a bouquet of vibrant flowers in his hands, each petal reflecting his expectation and joy. Evelyn, who was waiting, saw him through the window and felt her heart race. The excitement was palpable. "Happy birthday, Evelyn. Today is a big day," Daniel said excitedly upon seeing her, extending the bouquet. "Oh, Daniel, they're beautiful." "Thank you," Evelyn said, accepting the flowers with tears of happiness in her eyes. After saying goodbye to Martina, the other staff, and the children, Evelyn said she would return for a visit. Daniel took Evelyn to her new home, Guadalupe's house, a friend of Martina's, so she could start her life outside the orphanage. When they arrived, Guadalupe, a plump lady in an apron with a soft face, was already waiting. Guadalupe was very welcoming and said she always received girls at her house at Martina's request, so they would have a place to stay and start their new lives. After Daniel said goodbye, promising to return later to take her out to dinner, Evelyn spent the entire afternoon talking with Guadalupe. "You have a good heart, ma'am. I thank God for meeting wonderful people in my life," Evelyn said with a smile. Months later, Evelyn had settled into her job as a saleswoman and, with Guadalupe's support, felt fulfilled. Her relationship with Daniel was strong and was about to enter a new phase, which unfortunately would bring much suffering to Evelyn. On a cold Sunday morning, Daniel picked up Evelyn to take her to his house and introduce her to his mother, Victoria. Victoria, Daniel's mother, had always been a woman of strong convictions and high expectations, especially when it came to her only son's life. After the divorce, she became more reserved and critical, focusing much of her attention on her son's well-being and decisions. Upon arriving at Daniel's house and meeting Victoria during dinner, Victoria showed her discontent upon learning that Evelyn was poor and came from an orphanage. Her insensitive comments made Daniel uncomfortable. "Mom, please treat Evelyn with respect, because you should know that I will stay with her, regardless of your prejudices," Daniel said after taking his mother to talk privately in another room. "Seriously, son? A scruffy girl who came from an orphanage? I expected more from you, Daniel. But if that's what you want, fine. Just don't bring her here again." "I don't want that kind of people in my house," Victoria replied, already walking towards her room. "You can rest assured, because soon I'll be living with her and we won't bother you anymore," Daniel revealed, returning to the dinner table with Evelyn. Victoria turned, shocked by his words. She had always feared this might happen, as she was divorced and only had Daniel to keep her company. Victoria felt even more anger towards Evelyn. A few weeks passed, and Daniel acted with determination. He found a vacant apartment in his building and decided to invite Evelyn to live with him. Evelyn, although surprised, felt that this was the natural progression of their relationship. She accepted, excited and full of hope, eager to start a new chapter of her life with Daniel, carrying with her the values and love instilled by Martina and the other orphanage staff. When they arrived at the apartment, Daniel handed the key to Evelyn, wanting her to feel welcome. She opened the door and was extremely happy to finally have a home and a love with whom she could share her life every day. In the following weeks, Evelyn and Daniel prepared for their new life together. However, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that Victoria would continue to be a constant obstacle in their relationship. Despite her efforts to keep the peace, tensions increased every time Victoria visited them. Each time, Victoria made comments that were veiled insults, criticizing Evelyn's upbringing and questioning her ability to maintain a home or be a good partner for Daniel. One day, after one of these visits, Evelyn confided in Daniel about how difficult it was to deal with Victoria's constant scrutiny and judgment. Daniel, always supportive, promised her that they would find a way to deal with his mother and reassured her that his love for her would never waver, no matter what happened. As they planned their future together, Evelyn unexpectedly became pregnant. The couple was scared at first, but decided to face the situation together and embrace the new reality with hope, seeing it as a new chapter that would bring more purpose and love to their lives. This decision left them vulnerable to judgment, especially from Victoria, who no longer supported her son's relationship when she discovered the news. Her face immediately tensed, her eyebrows furrowed, as she struggled to process the couple's words. So you really believe you're ready to raise a child? Don't you realize that this irresponsibility can ruin Daniel's future? Victoria asked harshly, directing her gaze at Evelyn. Mom, this is something we decided together. We know it wasn't the ideal time, but we're going to raise this child with love and dedication, Daniel said, trying to keep calm. And you, young lady, aren't you going to say anything about what you planned? Use this as an excuse to trap Daniel, right? Turn your mistake into an unbreakable commitment? I know people like you, Victoria accused Evelyn, pointing her finger at the young woman. I would never do something like that, Mrs. Victoria, Evelyn said, holding back tears. Daniel is my partner because we chose to be together. I would never take advantage of anyone. And about the baby, it really was a surprise to us. But we're going to face this as a blessing, Evelyn concluded, wiping the tears that were already falling from her eyes. A blessing? How can you see this as a blessing? Daniel had a promising career ahead of him, and you're going to ruin everything, Victoria snorted with disdain. Don't blame Evelyn, Mom. She didn't ruin anything here. We're responsible together, and this child is not a mistake. Stop trying to create drama, for God's sake, Daniel intervened loudly. Of course you would defend her, but that doesn't change reality. Children are an immense responsibility, and you're not ready for this, Victoria said very seriously. Mrs. Victoria, maybe we don't have all the answers right now, but we know we'll work hard to give this baby the best life possible. I also work, ma'am, and I'm well supported by my boss, who already knows I'm pregnant, and I hope that, with time, you'll be able to see beyond the criticism and support us, said Evelyn, taking a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. Calm down, young lady. All right, but planning and doing are different things. When things get tough, you'll see, Victoria responded argumentatively. Mom, enough. Evelyn is giving everything she can, and we need your support. Enough criticism, said Daniel, tired of the discussion. Despite Victoria's attempts to sow discord, she found herself unable to break the bond that united the couple. Although her words left scars that would take time to heal, a few months later, a tragic event would further aggravate the situation. Daniel and Evelyn had scheduled an ultrasound for that special day, full of expectation and joy. It was one of those moments that expectant parents await with enthusiasm and excitement to see the image of the baby growing healthy. They left home with wide smiles, exchanging glances and talking about plans for the new family member. The consultation was wonderful, and both were emotional when they heard the baby's heart beating strong and saw its tiny form on the ultrasound screen. With hearts overflowing with happiness, they left the clinic and took a taxi home, continuing the conversation about baby names and how they would organize the nursery. As the taxi approached a busy intersection, a speeding car whose driver had lost control unexpectedly hit the side of the taxi where Evelyn was sitting. The impact was violent and sudden, transforming a day of celebration into a scene of terror. The taxi was thrown off the road, the accident leaving a trail of broken glass and twisted metal. Soon after the accident, passers-by rushed to help, calling ambulances while trying to offer some comfort to Evelyn and Daniel, both visibly affected and injured. Evelyn, in shock, could barely understand what had happened, her mind still trying to process the rapid transition from joy to despair. The ambulance siren soon pierced the air, interrupting the chaotic traffic and worried voices around them. The rescue team quickly arrived at the scene, moving efficiently to assess the injuries and prepare Evelyn and Daniel for urgent transport to the hospital. Evelyn was carefully placed on a stretcher, still in shock, while paramedics worked to stabilize her during the journey. Daniel, seriously injured, was treated by another team. Each of them rushed to the nearest hospital. At the hospital, doctors and nurses quickly focused on providing the necessary emergency care. Evelyn felt like a spectator, with everything seeming distant and unreal. A terrifying quietness enveloped her, mixing fear and physical pain as she waited for news about her condition and Daniel's, fearing the worst. Finally, a doctor approached with a serious expression, his words falling like hammers on her soul. I'm sorry, Evelyn, but you lost the baby, and Daniel is in critical condition. These words echoed in her head, each syllable a stab that further fractured her already broken heart. She felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her, leaving her falling into an abyss of pain and despair. The dream of a new life, The joy of bringing into the world a part of the love that she and Daniel shared was torn from her in a moment. Later that same day, as Evelyn lay in a hospital bed, trying to recover not only from physical injuries but also from the emotional shock of losing her child in Daniel's critical condition, the quietness of her room was abruptly broken by Victoria's unexpected arrival. Consumed by despair and pain, Victoria couldn't maintain her composure. The door to the room opened forcefully, and Victoria entered like a storm, her steps quick and heavy echoing through the silent room. Evelyn, still weak and in shock, looked up, meeting Victoria's burning gaze. "This is all your fault," Victoria spat, her voice trembling with anger. "If it weren't for you, my son wouldn't be in this condition, and my grandchild would be alive. Are you satisfied now?" Evelyn, too fragile to face a confrontation, felt the weight of Victoria's words like physical blows. She tried to respond, her voice barely a whisper. "Victoria, I never wanted this. It was an accident. I lost my baby too. Don't talk to me. You've always been irresponsible. You came from an orphanage and never had a real family to teach you anything. You came into my son's life out of nowhere, took advantage of him, and now look what happened. How can you live with yourself knowing you destroyed my family?" Victoria shouted, her voice rising with desperation. Meanwhile, a nurse tried to intervene, approaching to calm Victoria and give Evelyn some space to breathe. "Ma'am, she needs to calm down, or I'll have to ask her to leave. She's also injured and needs to rest," said the nurse, placing herself between Victoria and Evelyn. Victoria, breathing heavily, gave Evelyn one last look full of contempt before the nurse insisted she leave the room. Victoria left, still muttering harsh words, leaving Evelyn alone in her hospital room. Evelyn closed her eyes, allowing tears to flow freely, her heart shattered. A few days later, Evelyn was discharged after recovering physically. However, Daniel, who had suffered severe head trauma, remained in critical condition in a coma. Evelyn returned to the hospital almost daily to visit him, staying by his side, waiting for any sign of recovery. But fate was cruel. Unfortunately, Daniel did not survive his injuries and passed away, plunging Evelyn into deep depression. At the funeral, Evelyn arrived with her head down and swollen eyes, devastated by the loss of the two most important people in her life, her child and Daniel. Victoria, watching her with eyes full of hatred, saw Evelyn trying to approach the coffin and advanced to confront her. "You have no right to be here, you miserable woman. My son doesn't deserve your tears. He's in that coffin because of you. Go away now. I don't want to see your face again," Victoria growled, her teeth clenched in anger. "Please, Victoria, I just want a moment to say goodbye. That's all I ask," Evelyn begged, her voice choked with sobs. "I don't want to hear another word from you." "Leave now," Victoria demanded, pointing to the door. Humiliated and expelled, Evelyn left the funeral with her mind and heart in pieces. She leaned against the walls due to the weakness she felt in her body, as if carrying the world on her shoulders. She couldn't even say goodbye to the man she loved so much, suffocated by the pain of a tragedy that had destroyed her. The accusations Victoria had thrown at her echoed in her mind, poisoning her thoughts as she desperately searched for any trace of peace. Over time, Evelyn sank into total darkness and distanced herself from the world, trying to process everything that had happened. But the unjust guilt that Victoria had placed on her only deepened her pain, making her grief even more lonely and bitter. She remained in this state for a long time, with the doors of her apartment and her heart closed. But not forever. Evelyn was broken, but she could still breathe. She believed that if she had survived, it was because she needed to move forward. On a scorching, sunny day, she woke up determined to start over. She decided to move out of that apartment, away from the memories of the tragedy, to start a new life in the capital. After the tragedy that changed her life, Evelyn decided to use the savings she had kept at Daniel's request, money earned from her hard work as a saleswoman before the accident, to lay the foundations for the new life she was determined to build in the capital. With these savings, Evelyn managed to rent a small apartment, her own space where she could begin to heal the wounds of the past and look to the future with some hope. The area where her new apartment was located was close to several luxury boutiques, and it was in one of these stores that Evelyn saw an opportunity to resume her career. Remembering her skills and passion for fashion, she didn't hesitate to apply for a sales position at one of the most recognized boutiques in the area. With her previous experience and a natural talent for connecting with customers, Evelyn quickly landed a job. Working in the luxury boutique offered her not only financial stability, but also an opportunity to engage in an environment she already loved. Over time, Evelyn decided to study business administration. Recognizing her talent and dedication, Elena, the boutique owner, offered to pay half of the tuition. Elena saw in Evelyn not just an exceptional saleswoman, but also a future leader in her business. Evelyn accepted the offer with gratitude and determination and soon began her studies. While at university, Evelyn immersed herself deeply in the study of business management, marketing, finance, and operations. It was in this enriched academic environment that Evelyn met Arturo. He was in the same management program as her, but with a particular focus on entrepreneurship and sustainable development. Arturo saw in Evelyn not just a determined and capable woman, but also someone deeply committed to her values and vision for the future. As they grew closer, they enjoyed a quiet walk around campus. Arturo and Evelyn walked side by side, enjoying the cool breeze that signaled the change of season. It was then that Arturo decided it was the perfect moment to express his feelings. "Evelyn, we've spent a lot of time together lately, and every moment has been incredibly special to me," Arturo confessed, holding Evelyn's hands, a little nervous. "For me too, Arturo. You're a wonderful man," said Evelyn, smiling and looking into Arturo's eyes. "You know, since I met you, I've been attracted not just by your intelligence or beauty, but by your kindness and the way you talk about your origins with such passion and sincerity. You inspire me," said Arturo. "Oh, Arturo, thank you. I'm just trying to be honest about who I am and where I come from. It means a lot to me that you appreciate that," she replied, taking a deep breath. "It's exactly because of that that I've been thinking, and I really want to know," said Arturo, gently squeezing her hands. "Evelyn, would you like to be my girlfriend? I'd love to have the opportunity to get to know you even better and see what the future holds for both of us," he said. At that moment, Evelyn's heart fluttered. Arturo's words evoked the love she had for Daniel, which had become a cherished memory. "Arturo, I would be very happy to be your girlfriend," Evelyn said with a sparkle in her eyes, excited. "I feel a strong connection with you, and I'm excited to see where this can lead us," she concluded, smiling. Sometime later, Arturo and Evelyn got married, and she became pregnant with Esteban, continuing her boutique career. Evelyn used her experience and positive results as a manager to support her when her son was born. She took maternity leave to enjoy every moment with the baby, but she also began to dream bigger, inspired by Elena's business model. She decided it was time to follow her own path in the luxury sector and didn't return to Elena's store. Although sad to lose an excellent professional, Elena understood that Evelyn needed to move forward. With her savings and a loan approved due to her excellent professional history, a few months later, Evelyn opened her first store. Balancing attention to her son Esteban with her husband's support, Evelyn's first boutique was modest, located in a neighborhood near her home. She chose to start conservatively to better understand the market and build a solid customer base. Evelyn involved herself in all aspects of the store, from product selection to marketing and sales. She used her initial experience to refine the store's concepts and invest in more prestigious locations, attracting a clientele that valued the exclusivity and high standard of the products offered. Evelyn not only pursued the growth of her stores, but also the development of her son. Years later, Evelyn became a successful and respected businesswoman in the world of luxury fashion. Her network of boutiques grew, spreading to several important cities, each reflecting her commitment to quality and exceptional service. At that time, her son Esteban was already 20 years old and studying architecture. On a Sunday afternoon, while Evelyn and Esteban shared a quiet moment at home, they talked about life, their aspirations, and the journey they had taken together. Esteban, now an architecture student, reflected on the influences that shaped his career and his choices. Mom, you've always shown so much strength and integrity. You've taught me more about how to live than anything I've learned at university, Esteban said affectionately, holding Evelyn's hand. Esteban, no matter the difficulties, we can overcome them with hard and honest work, Evelyn said enthusiastically. And you're the best example of that, Mom. Every time I face a challenge at school, I remember how you faced yours, Esteban said thoughtfully. The conversation continued into the night, sharing laughter and memories. For Evelyn, those moments with Esteban were a sweet reminder of the reasons why she had to move forward. Living a happy life with her family, she came across an unexpected scene in the cafe, a man before her wearing a watch that reminded her very much of Daniel's. She didn't know what to think and on impulse invited him to leave the noisy cafe. "Can you come with me, please?" Evelyn asked Henry, who looked at her with wide eyes. "Of course, ma'am," Henry said politely. "Let's go. There's too much commotion here, and I don't want you to continue being exposed to so much humiliation," Evelyn said, as she took Henry by the arm and led him out of the cafe. Marissa and the other customers thought Henry was caught, feeding off that malicious energy as they watched Evelyn walk with Henry through the streets towards a park. "Mr. Henry, you can have lunch now. Please sit on that bench," Evelyn said, pointing to the spot. "Meanwhile, can I see the watch? I promise I'll return it immediately," she asked clearly. "Of course, ma'am." Henry gently unbuttoned the watch and handed it to her, curious about the situation. Evelyn took the watch carefully with trembling hands while Henry devoured his lunch, putting another sandwich in his bag. She turned the accessory to examine the bottom, where, according to her memory, Daniel's name would be engraved. When she saw the inscription, a wave of emotion overtook her. It was exactly as she remembered, the name engraved in clear and precise letters next to the watch. The letter G was an addition she herself had requested years ago, symbolizing their love and the connection they shared. "Is this really his?" Evelyn asked, her voice choked with emotion. "Excuse me, ma'am, did you say Daniel?" Henry was surprised by the revelation. Evelyn nodded, her eyes full of tears as memories of the past returned. She carefully returned the watch to Henry, touching the cold metal lightly one last time. "Yes, Mr. Henry. How did this watch come into your possession?" she asked, her voice soft. "This watch belonged to my son Daniel," Henry said with a melancholic expression. "He passed away due to complications after a car accident." When Henry began to tell the story of the tragic accident, his words were saturated with sadness. Evelyn, upon hearing Daniel's name confirming her suspicions, held back tears as Henry continued. "At that time, his mother and I were divorced, but our son's death didn't bring us back together." In a moment of deep sadness and vulnerability, Victoria, Daniel's mother, was inconsolable. She told me about the girlfriend he had at the time, whom I never personally met, and said that she was responsible for everything. Victoria never mentioned the girl's name, but she always said that if it wasn't for her, our son and our grandchild would still be here, Henry said thoughtfully. Victoria's accusations had a lasting impact on Henry, shaping his perception of his son's unknown girlfriend, whom he imagined as a destructive influence without really knowing who she was or her story. After the accident, we tried to resume our lives. We moved to the capital and I had a workshop, but with Daniel's loss, I lost all will to continue and ended up letting the business fail. It was at that moment of despair that Victoria suggested we do something to distract our minds. And unfortunately, we ended up involved in a fraudulent gambling scheme, he said with regret. He continued describing how they impulsively decided to sell the apartment they owned to finance a new start, but along the way they were attacked. The thieves took everything, including the checkbooks that Victoria was forced to cash under threat. We lost everything in that robbery. All the money from the sale of the apartment disappeared in an instant. Without money and without a home, we found ourselves living on the streets. Each day, Victoria blamed herself more and more, seeing our situation as a punishment for being a terrible mother and for not supporting her son's happiness in the last months of his life, Henry lamented. "Henry, that's a lot to bear. No one should go through so much suffering," Evelyn said, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, it's true. And the most ironic thing is that this watch is the only memento I have left of my son. Victoria told me he never took this watch off his wrist," Henry said, looking at the watch with a sad smile. Evelyn, listening to the story, felt the complexity of Henry and Victoria's suffering more deeply and realized how deeply past words and actions could influence and destroy lives. "But tell me, ma'am, what is your relationship with Daniel?" Henry asked. "He was my first love. I was the girlfriend Victoria told you about." Evelyn began to cry. The memories were still strong and vivid. "Is it really you?" Henry asked, very surprised. "My God, I remember him stopping by the maintenance shop and saying he was very happy with his new life and that Victoria was very demanding of him. Daniel never gave me many details about his life because after the divorce, I distanced myself from him. Although his heart was always big, he came to see me without Victoria knowing. So you were the girl he loved," Henry said, his eyes full of tears. "Yes, it was me, and it was I who gave him that watch." Evelyn remembered the day she bought the watch. She was happy to buy something with her own money for the love of her life. When Evelyn got her first job at an elegant boutique in the city, she saw the opportunity not only to build her career, but also to express her gratitude and love for Daniel. When she received her first salary, Evelyn knew exactly what she wanted to do: give Daniel something special to show how much he meant to her. After researching and considering various options, she decided to buy a watch, knowing that Daniel, with his passion for details and precision, would appreciate such a practical gift. Evelyn carefully chose a model that matched Daniel's style and asked for his name to be engraved on the bottom of the watch, symbolizing the solid foundation he represented in her life. Next to it, she had the initial G engraved, a discreet but meaningful reminder of her love and constant presence. "I remember he was so happy that I felt grateful for everything we had lived through together. I wanted him to have something to mark time, just as he marked my life." Evelyn sighed. Henry was moved by the revelation, feeling closer to his son. "I'm sorry for your loss, my dear. I'm sorry for the delay in my words," he said, wanting to hold Evelyn's hands, but feeling too dirty to do so. "It's okay, Henry. The feeling was beautiful, and I liked it very much. Yes, now they are memories, but let's think about the present. Tell me more about how you have been living. Is Victoria with you?" she asked, concerned. "Victoria is consumed by guilt and remorse. She sees our current situation as a form of atonement for past mistakes, convinced that everything that happened was a deserved punishment, reinforcing the couple's pain and despair. Daniel's death broke us, and everything that followed only shattered us even more. Victoria believes it's a punishment for everything she did wrong in the past, including you. I'm sorry, forgive us. I'm sorry for everything you went through because of her," Henry said with a trembling voice, explaining everything to Evelyn. "Thank you for your honesty, Henry. Life presents us with difficult challenges, and what you've been through is terribly sad. Thank you for sharing this with me and for asking for forgiveness. I hope we can find peace somehow," said Evelyn with tears in her eyes, touched by the old man's sincerity. Henry continued explaining that he did what he could to beg daily for food for himself and Victoria, but it wasn't always enough. "Mr. Henry, where is Victoria now?" Evelyn asked. "She's waiting for me under a tree we found to stay," Henry said, his voice heavy with weariness. Evelyn looked at him, her heart aching for the pain he and Victoria had endured. She knew what she needed to do. "Let's go see her," Evelyn said softly, her determination strengthening with each moment. Henry hesitated, concern etched on his face. "Are you sure you want to see her? After everything she said and did, it might not be good for you." Evelyn placed a comforting hand on his arm. "It's been many years, Henry. I don't harbor anger or resentment towards Victoria. I just want to help. Let's go." Together, they walked through the park, the autumn leaves crunching under their feet. As they approached the large oak tree, Evelyn saw an elderly woman sitting beneath it, her posture hunched, her face marked by deep sadness. Even from afar, Evelyn could see the years of guilt and despair etched into her features. As they got closer, Victoria looked up, her eyes widening in shock and confusion as she recognized Evelyn. It's you," Victoria stammered, struggling to stand up. Her hands were shaking, and tears welled up in her eyes. "Yes, it's me, Victoria," Evelyn said gently, kneeling beside her. I know it's been a long time, and I know you've been through so much, but I want you to know that I've forgiven you. We all suffered, but it's time to let the past go." Victoria's tears flowed freely as she looked at Evelyn, the weight of her guilt pressing down on her. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Evelyn. I wronged you in so many ways. I blamed you for things that were beyond your control, and I've spent every day since then regretting it." Evelyn took Victoria's hands in hers, feeling the fragility of the woman who was once so strong and unyielding. "We all make mistakes, Victoria. Life has a way of challenging us, of breaking us down, but it also gives us a chance to heal. I want to help you and Henry. You don't need to live like this anymore." Victoria sobbed, years of pain and regret pouring out of her. "How can I repay this kindness? After everything—" "You don't need to repay me," Evelyn said softly. "You just need to accept my help. Let me take you both home, where you can be safe and cared for." Henry watched with tears in his eyes as Evelyn and Victoria embraced, years of bitterness and sadness finally giving way to something new, hope. He had feared that the scars of the past would separate them forever, but here they were, united by the love they all shared for Daniel. With Henry's help, Evelyn gently guided Victoria to stand up. Together they walked back to Evelyn's car, each step symbolizing the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. When they arrived at Evelyn's house, she welcomed Henry and Victoria with open arms. The guest room, warm and inviting, was prepared for them, a stark contrast to the cold, hard streets they had known for so long. As they settled in, Evelyn made sure they had everything they needed, from clean clothes to a hot meal. In the days that followed, Evelyn's husband Arturo and her son Esteban welcomed Henry and Victoria into their family with open hearts. Esteban, now aware of the whole story, treated them with the same kindness and respect his mother had taught him. He understood the importance of forgiveness and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. One morning, Evelyn decided to take Henry and Victoria to the orphanage where she had grown up. It was a place that had shaped her, a place where she had learned the value of family, even if it wasn't tied by blood. She wanted them to see where her strength and resilience had come from. When they arrived, the staff and children greeted them warmly. Evelyn showed Henry and Victoria around, sharing stories of her childhood and the people who had cared for her. As they walked through the corridors, filled with laughter and hope, Evelyn felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. At the end of the visit, Evelyn gathered everyone together. "This place taught me that no matter where we come from or what we've been through, we can always find a way to move forward. We can always find a way to forgive and love." Victoria, with tears streaming down her face, nodded in agreement. "I see that now, Evelyn. I see that there's always hope, even when we think there isn't any left." Evelyn smiled, her heart full. "We've all been given a second chance, and we're going to make the most of it." As they left the orphanage that day, Evelyn knew that the past would always be a part of them, but it no longer held them captive. They had found a way to move forward, together, with love and forgiveness as their guiding lights. And in the years that followed, as Henry and Victoria became cherished members of Evelyn's family, they all learned that sometimes the most unexpected connections can bring the greatest healing. They had lost much, but they had also found something truly precious: the strength to begin again. Evelyn, Arturo, and Esteban continued to thrive, their family growing stronger with each passing day. Henry and Victoria, once burdened by guilt and regret, found peace and comfort in the love that surrounded them. And in those moments of quiet reflection, they knew that Daniel's memory would live on in their hearts, a reminder of the love that had brought them together. As the sun set on another day, Evelyn looked at her family, the warmth of their presence filling her with gratitude. They had all come a long way, and though the journey had been difficult, they had found their way home, together. And for Evelyn, that was all that mattered.